Hello. It's a strange time in the world. I know it's a strange time in my body. Last week, there was a service interruption during the live stream, and I saw it when it happened. Um, and then I saw that it came right back in, so I kept talking. And when I closed the session, it was about a 40-minute session, and apparently the only thing that saved was that first leg, that first like 13 minutes or something. So if I see the connection go out today, I don't know. I know that there's been a lag in here. I know that there has been feelings around just being accountable for this space. So I think what I'm doing today is I'm giving myself permission to just delete this at the end of the hour. Because the point is that I want to be here. And I did imagine that that could create space for other things. We'll see. We'll see. I was walking this morning, and there's a place that I like to walk in the area, and there's a place where I always stop. There's like a bench pavilion. There's like some horses in a field sometimes right there. So I always like to stop there and stretch my hips a little bit, do some posture work or some energy work. And today, while I was there, I ended up in a organic conversation with a couple of other ladies who were walking. One of whom, in particular, shared with me just some limitations in her body that she feels when she's walking. Some surgeries that she's had and some arthritis that she has, and the usual suspects. And she shared with me that her physician had told her not to do too much exercise for arthritis. I get so activated when I hear that sort of thing. There's no excuse for that. There is no excuse for that. And this beautiful person was out for a walk in the sunshine in the beautiful day, going easy on herself, but she's like, I have to do something. I can't just sit. I have to move my body. And this was coming from her, that she has this innate desire to continue to have physical relationship with her body in the face of these perceived limitations, in the face of pain, in the face of challenge, and in the face of an authority figure, a physician, telling her to do nothing, telling her to do nothing. Because I asked, and she was like, "Well, my physician, my doctor told me not to do this, this, or this, or this, because it'll make my arthritis flare up." And I said, "Well, my goodness, what are you supposed to do?" And she just laughed and said, "I know, right?" This is what physical therapy is for. Physical therapy is for quality of life, because our bodies are our vehicle to get through life. And I can see that the lag is starting up. It's gotta slow it down. Slow it down. And that's what somatics is for, is to keep this work at body pace. So that it doesn't get out ahead of us, and so that we don't get out ahead of ourselves. I've been doing a lot of this. It's been feeling good. I bought a bag of these, just like, I wanted to find some a little fatter than that, but these fat rubber bands that you can do something similar with. You can also just do the 4, keeping the hands sort of lined right there. Find what's available. Find what's available. Keep it comfortable. Right there for me right now. When it's energetic, it's myofascial. We're talking about the activation, the mobilization of energy in the body mechanism, which can be emotional, can be situational, interpersonal. It can also just be exercise related. But it's like, okay, let me find, just threw one of my rubber bands. Let me find a train. Let me find a pathway. Let me find a meridian and light it up and feel it and explore it and observe it. really have the same sense over here as I do over here. I'm gonna grab that other rubber band. I'm just watching, um, kind of to see if anyone pops in during this time. So let's see here. Let's explore. This is the one that feels a little weird. And I want you to be able to see. Gosh, this is so strange to try to do it on the screen. There we go. So it seems to me like there's just not quite as much stability here. Do you see that? How interesting. So you know what I'm going to do is I'm going to just massage this little knuckle a little bit while we're talking. I had a family member having a flare of sciatica recently. Um, and having a lot of trouble with it. And I think like many of us do, having more trouble with it than they were expressing very publicly. But they had been to the chiropractor a few times. They had been to the doctor. They had gotten some massages. And they really weren't having any success finding relief. And so I was finally able to get over there and have a look at them and show them a very basic exercise that I learned from the McKinsey program. And this person went from not having been able to sleep more than 2 hours a night for the last month, for the last 30 days by their reckoning. And then 24 hours later, 36 hours later, with this exercise protocol that I gave them, they texted me this morning to say that they had zero pain last night. So, so happy for that. How many other providers, how many hours of time, how many conversations had this person had that were unsuccessful? Unsuccessful. Expensive. X-rays are expensive. Why do we need the x-rays? There was no injury. There was no acute. You know, what are we going to do with an X-ray? An X-ray will show us the bones. An X-ray will show us um, some amount of soft tissue contrast. We can tell where the air is. We can tell where the fluid is to some extent on an X-ray. It's frustrating. It's frustrating because we as a species are we addicted to suffering, or are we addicted to avoiding suffering? The stories we tell ourselves about this is going to hurt, this is going to hurt, this is going to be unpleasant. And if we think that something's going to be unpleasant, we think that it's going to hurt, we aren't going to go that direction. We are going to stay away from that. And we, as a generalization in the version of Western American culture that I have observed, we have pretty dissociated relationships with our bodies a lot of the times. We don't understand what's going on in here. We don't have language for it. We were trained away from it from an early age. If you went through public school system, from an early age, we have little kids that everything in their physiology is telling them to move and run and explore and experience. And we put them inside of a building in a chair, these days in front of a screen, in kindergarten. It's absurd. But if you went through public schooling, you probably had some version of that experience where the physical body had to be ignored for like chunks of time, significant chunks of time on any given day. The physical body had to be ignored. Whether it's hungry, whether it's thirsty, whether it needs to go to the bathroom, if it's hot, if it's cold, if it's scared, if it's lonely. Don't have time for that. Got things to do. Got homework. Save it for recess. Save it for recess. They don't even get recess. My child is beginning her sophomore year in high school. She was in fourth grade at the beginning of COVID. She barely had recess in fourth grade, and that was the end of that. Our feelings, our emotional experiences, our psychological presence, all of it rides on the physical mechanism, on the physiology. Think of your body as your chariot. And there is a rider. There is a person holding the reins. But there's a lot of moving parts in that analogy. There's the cart, there's the wheels, there's the axles, there's the horses. They have minds of their own. So if we're putting ourselves into environments, we're entraining ourselves into environments that are going to encourage a certain level of physiological dysfunction. No wonder we don't feel good. I'm going to do the live long and prosper. Now, this is interesting. So, without the rubber band, I don't have trouble with that. When I add the resistance, the movement doesn't make quite as much sense, and I have to focus on it differently. See, this one just doesn't know how to handle life. Hmm. Oh, you see what happens down here? This is how physical therapy works. So I'm going to work on strengthening my hands in that pattern so that this little bit of soreness and sensitivity that incidentally ran all the way up into my jaw at the beginning of this session. I'd like, and part of that is just my bodily practice that I'm able to observe these sensations really effectively. But so this had my attention. I've noticed the physical movement that seems associated with it and is a deficit. There's something here that can be improved on objectively, mechanically, sequentially, mathematically, masculine brain. I can see it. Now I can exercise it. What will feel different as I address that? I don't know. I don't know. But it feels to me worth exploring. That feels good. That feels like a stretch in the right direction. Have to adjust that ring so it's not pulling on my skin, but yes. That is a stretch in the right direction. That feels nice. One of the things in the demographic of women as we age that we want to look at in the literature is really interesting, that our grip strength and hand strength are correlated, not causative, but correlated with our fall risk. And one of the most common things that happens when we do have a fall is we receive an injury here to our wrist or our hand. We call it a foosh injury, a fall on outstretched hands. That can be not very fun to try to recover from, particularly if there are other lower body injuries that came with that fall too, such as a hip or a knee or an ankle, because it's hard to take care of yourself if your wrist is also out of commission. So doing hand strengthening work, doing grip strengthening work, continuing to nourish the relationship that connects the hand to the rest of the body. The literature backs me up that over the course of my lifespan that will be protective. That will be protective. If nothing else, it will mean that I'm less likely to injure my hand or my wrist if I do trip or slip or lose my balance. I'll be able to more effectively catch myself and care for myself. So get you some rubber bands, or get yourself some of these fancy hand things and squeezy things. And if you are doing other forms of resistance work, your hands are participating in that. So notice what's happening with that grip when you grab onto the bar or you're holding that dumbbell. What's happening at your wrist? Are we flopping? Are we nice and strong? Are we deviated in some sort of weird way? Or can the weight, pretend this is heavy, the weight just sit oriented down towards the ground so that gravity points down? And these are the things that I look for when I'm working with a client. And they're little subtle things sometimes, but they affect the way that the entire mechanism digests the experience of the exercise. And we have to digest experiences just like we digest our food if we want the body to actually be changed by it. This is not about surviving an experience. Not anymore. Not anymore. Because if you are watching this video right now, you have already survived the worst things that have ever happened to you, because you're still here watching this video. And I appreciate you, and I'm really proud of how hard you're working. So there is a time and a place for survival. And then what? At some point, right, we come out of whatever foxhole that we dug for ourselves, and we look around and we get oriented. And we got to get moving again. And that's a brave moment. That takes courage. Courage is a function of your nervous system that we can exercise. This work looks different for everyone, but everyone has a body and everyone has breath, and everyone is connected into their breath and their body by gravity and sensation and awareness and the willingness to stay consciously in the driver's seat. The gumption. We can exercise gumption. We can practice gumption. Nick Offerman wrote a book called Gumption. He's a funny guy. It's a good book. Thank you, Nick. All right, we have been going for 31 minutes. I don't think there have been any interruptions. Thank you to everyone who attended my workshop this past weekend, The Physiology of Ceremony. We talked about physiology and we talked about ceremony and we talked about where they overlap. And I really enjoyed getting to do that with you all, and any feedback that you ever have about those kinds of experiences is really appreciated. So please hear my invitation to be generous with your feedback. I see the video is starting to lag again. We will continue to consider the long-term practicalities of this live stream format, because if my connection in this place is a little bit unreliable, or it seems to be so far. So we'll see. We'll see how that continues to evolve. But I think we covered some interesting things today. It's the little things. It's the little things that can make a difference in quality of life, quality of movement, quality of sensation and emotion and psychological experience. Quality, not just survival. Surviving, there's a time and a place for that. There's a time and a place for those functions, for that nervous system state, for those neurotransmitters. Of course there is. But it can't be all day, every day. That'll wear your engine out. That'll wear out the wheels and the gears and the driver. So we slow down and we breathe and we oscillate. We look around. And we peek out of our hole, and we expand out into the world. And we take a deep breath and we let go of that fear of death. Literally. Literally. And we started this conversation with a question about suffering. And if you've ever been to one of my live events, you know that I have little stickers that say suffering is optional. There's always pain, and there's real life, hard, scary stuff that happens. Everything that has happened so far, you have survived. Thanks. Thanks for doing that. Thanks for surviving. This book is on my table. I had lent it to a client and it has been recently returned. There we are. So I will share with you that a lot of my sort of personal research, bringing mind and body together, was greatly supported by this book. So, Eastern Body, Western Mind, Psychology and the Chakra System as a Path to the Self by Anodea Judith. I have some other yoga books by that author. So, a little light reading for anyone who's interested. Okay, I'm gonna wrap this up. I'm gonna leave it. I'm gonna leave it up, and see you next time. Thanks.